Welcome to How We Get Through, the podcast where we share stories, mental health insights, and healing advice on life's everyday challenges. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder of the How We Get Through app. We are back with couples therapist Abby Nordquist, and there's nothing like the thrill and sometimes terror of making a big decision within a relationship. I'm sure many of us can relate to the sleepless nights, the inner turmoil, and the plethora of what-ifs scenarios that haunt us. Join us on this episode as we navigate conflict and how it can actually help couples grow. Abby also shares her own personal experiences and reveals the secret to understanding what's at stake for both partners in a decision. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 with Abby Nordquist, a licensed marriage and family therapist in upstate New York. Abby is amazing, and she offers coaching and therapy for couples, and her new program, Missing Us, is coming up in fall 2023, so you don't want to miss it. But we're so excited to have you back, Abby. We were talking about in the last episode of just how hard it is as parents of young kids to find time with each other, and then also this idea of being able to move through conflict or move through a big decision when you are stretched so thin or you don't have that connection. And I really would love to know, before we get into like the tips that you have for us, I really would love to know your experience, if you have any personal experience with making a big decision with your partner and what that was like for you, because I think it's really important. Like, you know, sometimes people think like us as therapists, we have no issues or blah, blah, blah. Like we're all messed up, guys. But we also get called in to do our own work, and that's how we can create spaces for other people. But yeah, I just think it's important to kind of connect these pieces that like you can walk someone through this because we are the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. So we've made a lot of big decisions together and had a bunch of, different kind of crossroads at various points in our life. But I think the one where I had to do the most growth, and it's I think in part because I came into what we ended up deciding isn't what I initially wanted. I think some other times, like what ended up happening was kind of more what I was wanting initially. And so I think it required more growth on my part to have to move through the process with him when I ended up like doing more shifting, I think. So the example, and this is the example I talk about in the course, but it's when we were kind of trying to decide if we were going to stay in our current city or move. And the way I say it right then sounds kind of simple, but for those of you who have, made a big move, especially with kids, it is not simple. And there are so many factors at play.
And this is state to state, not city to city.
Yes.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So it's not.
Well, yeah. And we live in New York, and we're both from Texas, and all of our family lives in Texas. And so, we're very far away from family. And so that's always been a component in these decisions is, how far away are we getting? How, can we get any closer to family? And, all the other pieces that go into it. So this was several years ago when we were trying to decide. And it was such an exercise for me in having to really understand like what was at stake for me and what kinds of things was I wanting for myself in my life. And we're at a place where we kind of felt like whatever we decided, whether we stayed or we moved, we would probably be there for a long time because we ideally would like for our kids to be able to stay put and to go to school and make friends and kind of do all the things in one place. And that was really important for my husband because he moved around a lot as a kid and didn't get that. And so he really wanted that. And so I felt like high stakes around making a choice that we could live with and that would be a good choice for our family for the long term. And I had to really kind of dig deep to understand what was coming up for me. What were the concerns and the fears? What were the pieces I was needing? What was happening relationally between us as we were making these choices? What kinds of, feelings was I having about gender came up. Like, I don't, like it was hard to be the one.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. Or not move for a man, actually.
Yeah.
To stay put when I kind of wanted to move. And so, it was really important. And we really had to take our time with this. It was a very drawn out process over several months with I remember lots of dinners, like out at restaurants and times on the couch at night, like trying to really sort through this. And I feel like we came through it really well and grew a lot and understand a lot about each other now. And it's proved to be a really wonderful decision that I feel so good about. And I'm so glad that we were able to do that together. But it was a tough one for me.
Yeah. But I love how you kind of demonstrate too the like months it takes or the dinners it takes, like this kind of re-entering into this conversation multiple times, especially when it's a big choice. But it's not kind of this like, okay, we talked about it and what's your answer? I think I'm very like, okay, what are we doing? Let's move on, But the like slowness of it, that tolerating of it, that like digging deep and having to really dig deep within yourself and then giving space for your partner to dig deep as well. And I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. And again, we were kind of talking about it in the last episode, but the dedication towards yourself and each other, like to take that time or be intentional around that time is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I think knowing that and knowing with whether it's a big decision or it's like an area of conflict that keeps coming up in your relationship, it's called a perpetual issue. Whatever it is that's got some real deep roots to it, like I think going into it with the expectation of this is going to take a lot of time and energy, and that's part of it. Like that's part of what we signed up for. It's part of our relationship. It's part of how we grow and stay connected, throughout like all the things in life, I think is really helpful.
I'm like smiling because excuse me, I love that word of perpetual issue. And I'm like, oh my God, what are mine? What are his?
Oh, you've got them. You've totally got them.
I know. Should we list them out now? Ready, set, go. What's your number one? But I just love that framing of it too, because I think it normalizes that experience of like, this again, like, why is this like, because I mean, it's the same thing in parenting, right? It's like, when you see the mom blow up on their kids outside on the playground for something that seemingly looks like, oh, your kid is just like melting down. What's the big deal? But it's been like the sixth meltdown on the same thing over and over again. Like your tolerance has just been shot. So I like that idea of really naming that perpetual thing that cuts so deep, the roots are deep, but it also just like, almost like when it happens again, it's just like cuts you again, like just deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, so again, like it just, I don't know, I just had like a sigh of relief, like, oh yeah. I mean, I honestly can't pinpoint something right now, but I feel it in my bones that I got that. So I don't have an example, but that ache, that's what it feels like. It's like an ache. I'm getting a little teary right now. I don't know what it is. There's something here, obviously, but this ache of like, oh, I just want to be like seen in this. And this could be actually not in my relationship. This could be from my own attachment. But those get impacted in our relationships, right? This like aching of something, some need or some want that gets triggered or gets cut from our partners. I just took us down a different hole.
That's okay. But I like the new
here we are.
Hole path.
Yeah.
Like hole doesn't seem right, but I'll go with it.
Hole, but it's a path.
Yes, right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like we have these things within ourselves individually that, are perpetual or longstanding or have got roots or a lot of history that are going to come up over and over again. Like I always laugh when clients will say to me like, I know I'm talking about this again. And I'm like, well, of course you are, right? Of course you are. Like you're talking about it again because it's been so like significant in your life and it needs a lot of attention. and a lot of time. And let's give it that, right? Like let's go there again and again. And the same's true in our relationships, and sometimes those things are overlapping, and the things that are hard perpetually in our relationship are due to our own kind of individual perpetual issues, but sometimes they're just based in the history of our relationship and things that happened earlier that we never fully got over or worked through, or there's still some like scar tissue around that particular topic. And so when we like dip into it, if we can feel the weight of all the previous, arguments or moments or things that like predate this or get stirred up. And it's so helpful to know that and to even name that for yourself and for each other, of like, oh, this issue, we just dipped back into it, and this one's really tough for us, and we need to be maybe extra careful, extra sensitive, because this one's got a lot of pain around it.
Yeah. And I think like a practical application to that is that I hear in with my clients is like that I want another baby, or I think from the female perspective of like, I think I want another child. And like, it just feels like that broken record. I think that sometimes partners like, not this again. Right. So it's even like begging or kind of shedding light for, not just for, husband males or male partners to give more grace to their female partners, but also vice versa, of like, if your partner is coming up with something that is like habitual in some ways, or that it's that perpetual part, is like, how do we give space for that? Or how can we kind of see it as a cue that there's something that maybe they're stuck in, or that we are stuck in, that we actually need to dig deeper? Because I think at the surface, we grab those as like, I can't do this again, right? Like you're always talking about blah, 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 blah.
Yes. Well, and I was kind of laughing at, and of course, like sometimes your partner's going to bring up something, where it feels like it's the 86th time, and you don't have a lot of patience in that moment. And maybe you do respond, with not a lot of generosity, and that's okay. You can come back to it. You can say, oh, hey, remember yesterday when you brought this up and I didn't respond very sensitively. I'm sorry. Like, can we go back to that? Like it's okay to like in the moment struggle to kind of go back over the same thing. For you.
I love that. And with that, I think we should move into some practical tips. I mean, I think you already kind of like given a lot of even just like reframing that perpetual piece of like, there's something there for your partner, or there's something for you there. But I would love if you can kind of dive in a little bit more into like, what are some practical things that people can do or couples can do when they are trying to make a big decision?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is good for setting the stage, and it kind of reminds me, for those of you who maybe struggle to get pregnant and you're kind of in that trying to conceive phase, and you always get advice, try to have sex at other times besides just trying to get pregnant. That I think something can be similar around when there's this kind of heavy, big decision. Sometimes it can feel like it's hanging over you all the time, and it can like eat up all your time, or it can feel like you need a connection with each other in order to have those good conversations about the decision. So I always encourage people to when you're going through something like that, or just a big kind of hardship in your relationship, is to have some really protected time together where you're just connecting, you're just hanging out, you're just, being with each other. And that might be like something really meaningful and intimate and special, or it could be, just making a Tuesday night TV night, and you just hang out watching a show together that you like. As long as I've got some rules for the TV, but as long as you got to be watching the same screen at the same time and no other screens. So phones away, no laptop on the lap. I know it is hard, and you don't have to always do that. But if you want it to count as hangout time, you got to put the screens away, and you have to both be watching something you like. So you can't. I don't think it really does the same thing if you're watching the other person's show, but you're really not into it. and then have one body part touching. So feet, elbows, hips, cuddling, whatever, but lips are touching. It's tricky to watch a show like this, but it's really the only way.
You heard it first here, guys.
Yeah, but so whatever it is, like, again, it could be as simple as watching something together, but I think just having some intentionality around, we need some time together while we're going through this hard thing.
I love that tip because it feels very like tangible. It feels like you can do that tonight. You know, you can do that at any time, really. And I think, again, that I think in anything we do in like healing or self-healing or partner healing with our partner is that intentionality part. Like, and I guess it's mindfulness if you want to go there, right? Like, it's mindfully putting away something, intentionally connecting, even if it's like with another screen, you know, which is our lives, right? And so like, it's not like you have to like spend 2 hours just like staring at each other, you know, in a meditative state. It's a practical application to it's not ironic, but it's like, oh no, duh. Like, I think when I'm in conflict with my partner, I feel a huge disconnection. So there's almost like not even this want to connect because I feel so, right? And so it's even just trying to slowly warm up back again, the connection again to yourself, the intention for yourself and the intention to your partner, I think is like, I kind of visualize like the on-ramp, let's go this way, the on-ramp of reconnecting to them.
Similarly, around intentionality, I think when you're making a big decision, I think you just have to have a plan for how you're going to make space to talk about it. I think especially with young kids, you know, you do not want to be deciding your family's future, you know, between diaper changes and, you know, making mac and cheese or whatever you're doing. Like, you want to have some time where there's no one else around and you can actually speak to each other in complete sentences. And so that often takes some planning. And so, trying to make that happen as best you can, I think really helps the conversation, you know, have a better chance of being productive and helpful.
Yeah. I think it's a good point too to notice like when you start to maybe have conversations with your partner in like the busiest times and like how are they responding? Are they able to receive anything? Or are you able to really communicate what you want? Like, because I think sometimes life happens. I know this happens with us a lot. It's just like we're, you know, in between dinner time and we're like, hey, could you do that thing? Hey, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's a little bit more for like strategic stuff. But even just like noticing the way that you're already communicating important things, right? And like what and how to kind of shift that into, again, that intentionality or that creating space for taking the time to sit with really important like ideas or dreams, or again, if it's conflict, like how can we really spend the time to do that?
All right. And I think the last one, and as kind of a teaser for the course, is and it's a big piece that I cover in there, and it's a hard one, which is the balance of both knowing and holding on to what's really important for you, and also letting go of the focus of trying to get that outcome.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. Because there's a huge difference between expressing, and you used the word dreams a minute ago, which is a really good word when we're talking about decisions or even just kind of big, heavy conflict. Is like there are dreams that are usually at play here about what you want for yourself and your family. And you both need to hold on to that and be able to connect to it and express it and help your partner really understand that. And because you're in a committed relationship, you're going to have to let go of holding so tightly to wanting that as the only outcome.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do. It's a really nuanced, I think, balance.
Yeah. Because I think that's where the conflict arises, right? Is both people, or maybe just one, I mean, both, are holding on to, this is the outcome I want, you should want it too, right? Like this, I can't let go, or I can't, there's no room to kind of pivot into something different or morph into something different because there's a strong holding on the outcome of it, which is huge because when we talk about conflict, it's like we're wanting to skip over this giant part and just say, well, this is what I want. Here it is. Let's do it. But I think what you're saying too is the, again, intentionality of like the work is actually connecting around that, and the outcome actually doesn't matter, right? Like it matters less and less because what you're actually trying to do is reconnect with each other and really understand each other on a deep level in order to create something together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's like if both people are holding so tightly to the outcome, then they're losing the ability to really kind of co-create or co-imagine something that could be the same. It could end up being exactly what you wanted. It could be slightly different, could be wildly different, but you won't. It'll be so hard to know if you're holding so tightly. And so I think opening up, like kind of having that like palms open mentality is just really helpful for the process itself and for your relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, I mean, I think I can like think about how to like give some tips into like letting go of the outcome, but I'm curious of what you would say if somebody's like, I have to, like, I can't let it go, right? Like what happens then? Or what are some ways to like soften or loosen?
I would explore what's connected to that. You know, when we talked about those roots earlier, and if someone is feeling so tight to a particular outcome, I would really want to spend some time on understanding what that's about. What are the desires? What are the fears that they have if they don't get that particular outcome? What's at stake for them? What feels really scary? What feels scary about letting go of the outcome, right? There's so many pieces there that I think with a lot of curiosity could be understood, and it could loosen it a little bit, even just to have more perspective on it.
Yeah, that's my favorite word, is curiosity. I've learned it when I was an intern. This other therapist who he was amazing, but he would always say, he's like, I would like to invite you to consider, right? And again, it's like this, like, I'm inviting you into something different. I'm inviting you into curiosity of what is getting in the way of, right, this outcome, or this like staunch holding of this outcome, or what if you both wanted the same outcome, or kind of like just like what if it a little bit, like how do you, even the visual of like softening something that you're holding so tight, like how do you release like one pinky finger off of your outcome, like slowly at a time? Because I think it feels kind of unreasonable, and for someone to be like, okay, well, I just don't care about my outcome anymore, right? But it's like this slow process of how can I hold it a little bit looser, one pinky at a time, to enter into something else, or to see someone else's perspective of it. Because I think that's what gets in the way, is like, well, this is what I want. And so we're so focused on what we want that we can't hear our other partners, or what our partner wants is so different that it just becomes, well, we're at a standstill. Like, here we go.
I guess we're done.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Done.
Right.
Donezo. Yeah.
Right. And of course, like there are times when that happens, and where it really is a crossroads, and people, like the decision itself, it becomes a barrier to continuing in the relationship, I just think that's less common. I think that there are more situations where couples really could move through things together in a different way.
Yeah. And I mean, that's very sweet. I mean, you're like, here's the reality of it. It happens, but it is less common. And I'm just curious of like the people that it does happen to, if that speaks more again to like their own like attachment style or maybe lack of tolerating the conflict or lack of that, or if it's even just like a good decision, right? Or if it's like, I don't know, tell us the goss on that. Like what happens? What happens on the other side of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes if that happens, if the crossroads like become so much that the couple like kind of ends their relationship over that, I think it's either a failure in the process, a failure of one or both people to be able to tolerate the decision-making process and to do exactly what we're talking about staying open and curious and hearing from each other and caring about each other's perspective and that kind of thing. Or the decision itself, like the outcome, like really does hold so much weight for one person that they don't see a life for themselves without that.
Yeah. What's an example of that? Like when you're talking about that, like a baby?
Like, yeah,
or
like having children versus not having children, I think can push against that for couples. It certainly doesn't always have to. I know lots of people who've been able to work through that. I think that's a really big one because it just changes the course of your life so much. There's really no compromise on a baby or not. I think there's compromise in how to make that work or or the timing of it or what kind of support to have or how to, all sorts of factors around it. But that's one that I think people can get a little more stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if they decide to have the baby, then they can come to you afterwards and say like, what happened to our relationship? I'd like it back.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. Which leads us into, tell us again about Missing Us, your program. Let us know like how people can get in contact with you. Tell us everything.
Yeah. So it's an 8-week group coaching program. And it's for couples who want to reconnect and reprioritize each and their relationship after becoming parents. And there's 8 weeks of lessons, and each lesson is either building some of the habits and routines that are needed in your relationship now that you're parents, or really digging into some of the skills and processes that are really crucial for a healthy relationship. And our next round starts in September of 2023. And you can go, I've got a wait list if you're interested in getting on that so that you are the first to know more details and when registration opens.
Awesome. Yay. Well, you got a customer right here.
Okay.
That's so good. But I love, what can people expect when they finish the program? Like, what are people saying that they feel better about?
Yeah, I think the kind of most feedback I got after this last round was about how just going through the 8 weeks together created such a foundation for them. And not everything was figured out. You can't totally change your relationship in 8 weeks, but they're both given the same information around what they need to do and what they both are wanting, and some really practical things that they're starting to implement as the program is going. And I think it built a lot of confidence for the couples that they kind of had what it takes to get through, the things that are coming up for them or the things that are hard for them now, that they have, those skills in place to be able to tackle those things.
Yeah, which is like such a great feeling in a partnership, right?
Yes.
That you can apply to everything. Yes. Yeah. Abby, thank you so much again for coming on. It's always a pleasure. We're friends in real life, and we were just joking how like we can just talk like this. No, the sweater was a sweater. No, that was a different cookies. Some Christmas special. You guys, everyone's listening to this like it's this. So let me know. Comment on our YouTube where we missed things. and we just really appreciate you here. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. If you are struggling with a big decision in your partnership, you can check out Abby's course on the How We Get Through app. And if you and your partner are ready to recommit to each other, and you have young kids and you're like, what happened to us? Check out her program, and it'll be in the show notes as well. So thank you guys. Thanks,
Awesome.
Abby.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks for listening to our show. We hope you feel empowered with a better understanding of yourself and your partner when you find yourselves in conflict. If you listen to this episode and you were like, I need more guidance at my partnership, then check out Abby's course, Making a Big Decision with Your Partner, on the How We Get Through app, which is available for both Android and iPhone. Check out next week's episode as we talk to psychiatrist Jess Bichowski and we peel back the curtain on getting a diagnosis such as ADHD and OCD and many more. See you there.